Welcome to Presenting with Impact, Part 2, Presentation Delivery. I'm Trenna Laurie. What is presentation delivery? Enhancing comfort and effectiveness when delivering presentations. Essentially, what you do. Why is it important to prepare your delivery? Well, it's essentially to show confidence, to appear credible, sound professional, make an inspiring impression, look reliable, seem unflappable, act in control of the situation. We can sum all that up into just the phrase, show confidence. So our goal is to show confidence so that when we do, our audience will trust in what we have to say. First, we'll look at the key components to delivery, then responding to questions, and then how to manage that anxiety. The key components to delivery are your voice, eye contact, gestures, posture, and movement. So how do we use our voice? Well, it's important to vary your tone and pace, like Uncle Walter Cronkite, who was a newscaster who was known for that wonderful voice, even when he said his closing statement every day on the news, and that's the way it is. It sounded various. He varied his tone and his pace. Use a warm, friendly tone, something that sounds like hot chocolate feels. We want it to be dark and low and friendly sounding. Put energy and animation in your voice as if you were animating a cartoon. Make it sound interesting, because if you are monotonous and your voice is dull, it's going to put your listeners to sleep, obviously. And then project beyond the back wall. Imagine that you're in a large venue, even if you're in a small room, because sometimes we only project to the front row, and the people in the back row can't hear us. And if they have to work hard to hear us, they're going to stop listening. Next is eye contact. And eye contact keeps people engaged, and it's a source of feedback. You can tell what they're thinking. So we want to make sure that we look at people in the eye. So make sure it's often. However, be mindful of duration. You don't want to be the speaker who stares at the one person in the audience until they feel uncomfortable. So just give it just a quick glance at as many people as possible. In fact, what we want to do is avoid the ping pong effect. That's where we look one side to the other, back and forth, just like that. Instead, we want to look at somebody in the eye, then back and forth, in a zigzag fashion, and long enough to actually make eye contact. Even the people in the back of the room that might be just a blur, be sure to look at them, and then they will feel that you are talking specifically to them, and they'll be more engaged and listen more. So make sure you make contact with the entire room. What do we do with our gestures? Our hands, essentially? Well, first, it's a good idea to adopt a ready position, and that means put your hands at your waist. Generally, we don't know what to do with them, so we tend to hold the podium or the lectern, and or we cross our arms or we fold our hands. The best way to do it is just like this, where your fingers and your thumbs are touching, and that way it's ready to talk to the audience using your hands. So keep your hands almost like a prayer mode, and that shows that you're fully confident in what you're saying. Keep gestures simple yet varied. Make sure that you try different things and actually use your hands. And you can only do that if they're at a ready position. But avoid overuse of the big gestures. Don't do one thing too much or make them too big. You don't want any of your gestures to be above your shoulders or below your waist. You want to keep them all in that the waist just above. Don't grip immovable objects like the lectern or the podium. It just makes you look nervous. And try to avoid crossing your arms. While it may not mean that you're closed off, this is how it's generally perceived by your audience, that you're not open to listening to them. So if somebody's asking a question, that might be a good time to put your hands behind you to say, I'm completely open and I want to hear what you have to say. But otherwise, just keep your hands somewhere in front of you around your waist level. What do you do with your whole body, your posture and movement? Well, make sure that you maintain a comfortable stance. That means that put your weight on both feet. And remember, if you do have a lectern, don't grab it. You can touch it occasionally, but don't grab it, and put the weight on your feet. And remove those barriers if you can. Stand at the side of the podium. Now, it's hard if there's a microphone and you have to use it and it's attached to the podium. I have a tendency to move the neck of the podium, the microphone over so that I can stand to the side. So I can remove that barrier. People can see more of me. And please avoid being cemented in place or pacing and rocking. That's not a good look, especially if you're going to be videotaped. It's very obvious then, so try not to do that. It's a nervous tick. And please try to avoid the fig leaf. Now we're going to respond to questions. And the only way you can actually respond to questions is to listen, to hear what the actual question is. And also pay attention to what's already been said, because they may be asking a follow-up to something that you've said already, or that somebody else has said. So make sure you actually listen. And also pause to organize your thoughts. Don't feel like you have to immediately come up with an answer, because sometimes you have to have time to think. And in fact, if you respond too quickly, it'll sound like you didn't think at all. So pause, think about how you want to say it. And then repeat the question, but rephrase it to upgrade it. So if the question isn't the best question, or if it's in a negative tone, you might want to rephrase it something like this. The question might be, isn't it just a scam? You don't want to say it again so everybody can hear it. Isn't it just a scam? Instead, you might say, the question is, how can we tell if it's a real offer? Because essentially that's what they're asking. So repeat the question, but rephrase it to upgrade it. Give one main support based on your knowledge and what you've already said to help answer that question, and then stop. Don't end on an excuse. Too many times we just go on and on trying to justify our answer, and give excuses for why things didn't work out right. Don't. End on a positive instead. Sometimes we want to encourage questions. We want people to ask questions, and they aren't. So we can say things like, well, what questions do you have, instead of, does anybody have a question? Because with that, you only have a yes or no option. Another one that I love to use, I use it all the time, especially when I'm teaching a technical topic, and people might think, oh, this is a stupid question. So I ask, do you have any stupid questions? And invariably somebody will say, as a matter of fact, I do. And hear all of the question. Don't interrupt, because too many times we've heard the question, we think we've heard the question before, and it may not be what we thought it was. Plus, it shows that you care about them if you listen to the whole question. And then remember, we repeat the question and upgrade it, and then direct the answer to the whole group, not just to the one person who asked it. Otherwise, it becomes a dialogue just between the two of you. And remember, you are speaking to an entire group. So look at them at first, and then start answering the answer to everybody. Sometimes you just don't know. And if you don't fake it. They will be able to tell. You will get found out. So instead say, I don't know, but I'll find out, if you feel compelled to, if that's something that you do want to find out. You might also ask, does anybody know the answer to that? Maybe somebody else already knows that. If you think that they're just asking the question, they don't really want to know the answer, they're just asking for the sake of talking, then say, why don't you see me afterwards? Or I'll give you my email address, and you can ask me in an email, and then I'll be able to respond to you better. And that puts the onus on them, and they may not bother. It's important to manage our anxiety. We look at that microphone, we look at all those faces out in the audience, and you can get butterflies. But I had a boss that used to tell me, make the butterflies fly in formation, and that absolutely works. In other words, use that energy, but use it for positive. What is critical is that you memorize your opening. That's probably where you're going to feel the most anxious, is at the very beginning. So memorize it, practice it till you absolutely know it without having to look at anything. And when you get through that, then you'll feel more comfortable, because you know you've gotten through the hardest part. Visualize success. See yourself as being successful, as answering people's questions before they even ask them, as everybody having smiles on their faces. Visualize that before you go in, and you will feel better about it. You will think, this can happen. Look for engaged faces. If there's people out there that are looking sympathetic and happy towards you, look for them. But remember, you don't want to just talk to the one or two people that are smiling at you. But those are the ones that can bolster your confidence. And then finally, give yourself permission not to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. Some of the best speeches have some errors in it. It's okay, and just move on. Our delivery checklist includes 4 items under delivery, 5 items under responding to questions, and 5 items under managing anxiety. So keep those in mind when you're preparing to deliver a speech. Thank you for joining us. If you like it, please click like, and we'll see you next time.